Hi guys, this video has taken a while to be released, only because the next subject of this series has a life that could make up several volumes of encyclopedia. From the title of this video, you must be thinking that this is old news from when Peter Mutharika ran for the presidency of Malawi in 2014 or 2019, or the rerun elections in 2020. But no, this is not a flashback. This is the current state of things. Our former 83-year-old president is back. He's putting himself back in the race and plotting a comeback. Not a retirement plan, a comeback to the presidential throne. So why is an 83-year-old running for office yet again? In this third part of our series called How Well Do You Know Your Malawi 2025 Presidential Candidates, we shift our focus on a figure who claims to have been robbed of his presidency and who believes his administration was more efficient than the current Tonse-led government, blaming issues such as hyperinflation, unfulfilled campaign promises, and food insecurity. A man who is convinced that he is the only person who can lift Malawi out of this economic struggle it finds itself in. I have to say that in conducting research on who Peter Mutharika is, I learned a lot that I didn't know before. This is someone who is regarded as one of the most educated African presidents, with many academic accolades and some experience in serving his country, a political father figure. On the other hand, some would remember him as a man who didn't live up to his brother's legacy, a self-centered and incompetent man. Without doubt, he left a significant mark on the history and government of Malawi. However, we find ourselves at a crossroads where we really need to dig deep and understand who these people are, what motivates them, and what their plans are for the Malawian people. My goal is that at the end of each video, you can have all the information that you need on each candidate to make a good decision on who to vote for come Malawi 2025 presidential elections. All right, let's get right into it. To make it fair, we will follow the same pattern as the previous two videos, where we examine his background, life, political performance, technical skills, controversies, and popularity. And of course, I'll share my opinions and give my M-Dubz rating at the end. Without further ado, let's step into the world of Peter Mutharika. Hold on tight, because his story takes us way back into history. My name is Brendan, and this is M-Dubz Report. Mwadzuka bwanji, mwaswera bwanji, madzulo abwino. Peter Mutharika was born long time ago on the 18th of July 1940, the year after the Second World War began. He hails from Chisoka Cholo, Malawi. Public information about Peter Mutharika's parents is scarce. However, based on what's available about his older brother, Bingwa Mutharika, we know that their parents' names were Raison and Ellen Tom Mutharika. Raison was a teacher for 37 years. Both parents were devout Christians and members of the Church of Scotland, later the Church of Central African Presbyterian. Let's keep in mind that we are talking about records from 80 to 90 years ago, and a lot of the information from this period comes from sources about his brother, so this might not be a complete picture. He attended several primary schools in Malawi throughout his childhood. The exact names of all the schools aren't publicly available as well, but one confirmed school is Mulanje Mission. He studied at Dedza Government Secondary School for his secondary education, together with some notable Malawian politicians such as the late Chakufwa Chihana and Atati Mpakati. Fun fact or strange fact, Bingwa Mutharika was actually named Briston Webster Raison Tom at birth. In the 1960s, he changed his name to Bingu. This may have coincided with the wave of Pan-African independent movements to break away from colonialism. It doesn't seem like Peter Mutharika did the same though. APM attended Dedza Secondary School in Malawi for his high school education. After this point, all his further education was pursued abroad. He obtained his bachelor's degree in law from the University of London in 1965. Then he moved to America, where he attended Yale University and obtained a master's in law in 1966 and a doctorate in law in 1969 becoming one of the first and youngest Africans to receive a doctorate at the age of 29. He seemed to have spent a lot of time outside Malawi in the 60s, which he has addressed. Apparently, he and his brother Bingu fled Malawi in the mid-1960s because they feared that they would be persecuted for supporting some cabinet ministers who rose against Kamuzu Banda during that time. So he pursued his higher education abroad and spent most of his professional career in academia. Let's take a look at his work experience. So this guy was a teacher and academic through and through. After obtaining his doctorate and as a professor, he taught at various institutions which are showing on the screen. Just in case you missed it, he was a professor for 37 years. That is a whole career for some. To be honest, teaching may not be a very glamorous, trendy, or highly paid profession, but teachers are one of the bedrocks of society. They pass on knowledge from one generation to the next, and they teach leaders. So kudos to him. As a seasoned academic, Professor Mutharika is credited for numerous publications on a wide range of topics related to African policies, legal frameworks, statelessness and immigration, economics, and investments. Unfortunately, I can't read the titles of all of them out because we'll be here for as long as he's been alive. So let's move on. Mutharika specialized in international economic law, international law, and comparative constitutional law. One could argue that there is a difference between having knowledge and having wisdom. Wisdom being the ability to make sound judgments about a subject, while knowledge is simply knowing. To put it into context, knowledge is gathered from learning and education, while wisdom is gathered from day-to-day experiences and is a state of being wise. But we'll cover more on that in the next section on political skills. Now, just to warn you, the next part of this is confusing. If you try matching the reported timelines of APM's career, you'll get dizzy. We know he left for the UK and then went on to the States to get his degrees in the 60s, then moved to Tanzania in 1971. However, according to a Facebook post on the official Malawian government page in 2019, and I quote, Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika began his political career in the 1960s when he fought the repressive dictatorship of violence perpetrated by the Malawi Congress Party. As a freedom fighter, he offered free legal services to Socialist League of Malawi, Lesoma, led by Atati Mpakati, and Malawi Freedom Movement, MAFREM, led by Oton Chirwa. How was he doing that when he was in college abroad studying law in the 60s? Maybe he was offering these services remotely and while he was studying. If you know how to untangle the timelines, please do so in the comment section. Nevertheless, there was a wave of political movements in Africa during the 60s, and young people were leading the movements for change and independence. So it's no surprise that Mutharika claims that he was a good and valuable friend of grassroots freedom fighters like Chakufa Chihana, Jomo Chikwakwa, Henle Masauko Chipembere, and Atati Mpakati. He left Tanzania for the USA following the death of Masauko Chipembere and Atati Mpakati, as well as the arrest of Oton Chirwa in late 1981. While in exile, he served as General Counsel of the Malawi Action Committee, the main Malawi external pressure group during the struggle for democracy in Malawi. The next notable contribution to Malawi's political landscape was in 1995, after the death of former President Hastings Banda, where he served as a key resource and contributor to the Malawi Constitutional Conference in February 1995 at the invitation of the Constitutional Committee of Malawi. Let's speed this up so we can get to the good parts. 2004, his brother Bingu Mutharika becomes the president. Many would say that he was arguably the best president that Malawi has ever had. APM claims to have informally advised his older brother on foreign and domestic policy. 2009, APM becomes a member of parliament for Cholo East, and then his brother appoints him to the following ministerial roles. Minister for Education, Science and Technology, August 2010 to September 2011, 13 months. I can't comment on any notable achievements there. Next, Minister of Foreign Affairs, September 2011 to April 2012, 7 months. He is credited for working to improve relations between Malawi and the United Kingdom. due to diplomatic challenges. Sadly, in April 2012, his brother, the former president Bingu, passed away and Vice President Joyce Banda was appointed president. Joyce Banda was president for the remainder of the presidential term. Then Peter Mutharika became president in May 2014. I wish the story were as simple as that, but it isn't. So let me give you some context on the state of affairs before APM became president. In 2010, there was a lot of tension because there were strong indications that President Bingu Mutharika planned to name APM, his brother, as the party successor over the sitting Vice President Joyce Banda. Bingu expelled her from the party in 2010 because she refused to accept the nomination of Peter Mutharika as the next president. There was no formal impeachment process, so she remained vice president of the country until Bingu's death. This is such a familiar tale in Malawi. Our presidents and VPs are never united. Bingu isolated his VP and APM isolated Chilima. Joyce Banda isolated her VP and President Chakwera followed this trend too. Wow. Anyway, Joyce Banda launched her own party and fractured the DPP. There were protests in 2011 during Bingu's regime over worsening fuel shortages, rising prices, and high unemployment. The next month in August 2011, suspiciously, the DPP National Governing Council endorsed Peter Mutharika as presidential candidate for the 2014 elections, a few days after the July 2011 nationwide strikes. The rift between APM and Joyce Banda seems to run deep.
Just sit and listen.
What about Dr. Joyce Banda? You talked to her?
No, not really.
Not really?
Not really.
Why?
I don't have her telephone number.
Should I give you?
Okay. All right.
So when I give you, you're going to talk to her?
Okay.
Is there anything that we don't know?
About what?
About you and your relationship with Dr. Joyce Banda? Because when I talked about the former president,
yes,
you were very glad. Your face was happy to say that you talked to the former president,
yes,
Dr. Bagiri Muzi. What's wrong with Dr. Joyce Banda?
No, there's really nothing wrong.
Okay.
I don't think so. There's really nothing wrong at all.
Okay.
It's just that we haven't talked for some time. But
and
no,
you don't have her number?
No, I don't have her number.
We will cover all that drama in a future video on Joyce Banda. Let's focus now on APM's presidency. APM was sworn in as president of Malawi on the 31st of May 2014, 11 days after Malawi's first tripartite general elections. That was the first time that the president, National Assembly, and local councils were elected on the same day. Let's focus on what he really achieved as president. He is credited with improving infrastructure and lowering inflation. To have a balanced view of this, let's look at some of the statistics relating to inflation, covering the presidential terms of some of the previous presidents, including APM. Starting with Kamuzu Banda's term, the lowest inflation rate Malawi experienced was 9.8% in 1982. However, by 1988, it peaked at around 34%. Fortunately, this was quickly managed and dropped to around 12%. When Bakili Muluzi took office, Malawi witnessed its highest inflation rate in history, reaching a staggering 83% in 1995. Remarkably, within 2 years, Bakili managed to reduce this to an impressive 9.1% in 1997. Despite some fluctuations, he managed to bring inflation down to around 11.43% by the end of his presidency. The late Bingu Mutharika further reduced inflation to single digits, reaching as low as 7.4%. His term saw the most stable inflation period for about 8 years. However, after his passing, inflation rose to 21% during Joyce Banda's presidency, peaking at 27%. When APM took over as president in 2014, he managed to stabilize inflation. By 2017, he had reduced it to 11%, eventually bringing it down to a single digit of 8.63% by the time he left office. By looking at these figures, we can see the various challenges and successes each leader faced in managing inflation in Malawi and appreciate each one of them in that regard. We will cover the current inflation figures of the Tonse Alliance when we examine the presidency of Chakwera on our upcoming videos. Recently, APM has been complaining about the current cost of living crisis in Malawi. But can we truly trust that he has the experience and current knowledge on how to increase the value of the kwacha, or develop policies that reduce our reliance on foreign aid considering the challenges in global economics since 2020? The world still hasn't recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine, the devaluation of the kwacha. Does he really understand commerce, industrialization, global trade, micro and macroeconomics in a way that the ordinary Malawian citizen would benefit from on a day-to-day basis? He will be inheriting a very different Malawi from the one he knew in 2019 if he is to be voted into presidency. Agriculture was another focus area. Mutharika pushed the Green Belt Initiative to boost agricultural productivity through modern irrigation techniques. He also expanded the Farm Input Subsidy Program, making fertilizers and seeds more affordable for smallholder farmers, which greatly improved crops yields and food security. Infrastructure. Major investments were made in road construction and rehabilitation to enhance connectivity and market access. In the energy sector, efforts to address chronic power shortages led to investments in both traditional and renewable energy sources. If your community benefited from specific infrastructure projects, please let us know in the comments section. As an educator himself, APM focused on education by giving this sector a boost with increased funding for schools, expanding access to secondary and tertiary education, and a push for technical and vocational training. The healthcare sector also benefited from new facilities and better medical supplies. On the international stage, Mutharika was active in diplomatic engagements, enhancing Malawi's profile and attracting foreign investments and aid. Other achievements include the highest foreign currency reserves in the history of the country. Malawi recorded its highest foreign currency reserves in January 2019, reaching an all-time high of 924.6 million US dollars. National identification cards for the first time in the history of Malawi were introduced in 2017. In his term of office, Mutharika was entrusted with several international leadership positions. Despite facing challenges including protests and political opposition, Mutharika worked to strengthen democratic institutions and uphold the rule of law. His term ended after the annulment of the 2019 election results, leading to fresh elections in 2020 won by Lazarus Chakwera. He can be applauded for not fighting the results and not sparking unrest in the country after he lost. Okay, so with all that, I think we can rate him now. Let's start with technical skills. We cannot deny that this guy is educated, but as we all know, the number of degrees that one holds does not automatically mean that they have the ability to be a good president. Yes, on paper he's a lawyer, a teacher, and someone who has helped to draft and influence many policies. He has held many significant international positions and has experiences as an MP, a minister, and a president. But APM is old. In a normal working place, no one is hiring an 83-year-old CEO. So should we do that as a nation? Is his experience relevant for the current state of Malawi and the progression that we need now? For this category, I give him 5 out of 10. APM got his way into Malawian politics by walking in his brother's shadow. That's not an opinion, that is a fact. Nepotism or not, he used the entry to become one of the most influential people in Malawian politics. He too, like all Malawian presidents before and after him, has a problem with maintaining relationships with people. He doesn't get along with Joyce Banda, he fell out with Chilima, doesn't see eye to eye with President Chakwera. And the Malawian people were so enthusiastic about getting rid of him after only one term in office. That being said, he is still the leader of DPP, and DPP still has one of the largest memberships and following in the country, as we saw during the recent political rally at Njamba Park in Blantyre. In this category, I'll give him 6 out of 10. APM and controversy go hand in hand. He can't seem to shake it. I'll mention a few of them. First is the major controversy that surrounded APM during his rise to presidency of Malawi, his US citizenship controversy. His candidacy for government minister and his eligibility for the presidency sparked heated debate because there were doubts and speculations about his Malawian citizenship. Mutharika's eligibility hinged on 3 key points: being Malawian, being over 35 years of age by 2014, and having no criminal convictions in the past 7 years. Malawi's laws do not allow dual citizenship, leading to speculations that Mutharika had obtained US citizenship while living in the States, which could have required him to renounce his Malawian citizenship. However, the US Embassy in Lilongwe clarified that Mutharika was not a US citizen but held a green card. Critics argued that holding a US green card meant he owed allegiance to the United States, and they questioned how he could govern effectively while needing to spend a minimum of 3 months in the US each year to maintain his permanent residence status. Next, we have the issues that plagued Peter Mutharika's presidency and contributed to the dissatisfaction that led to the annulment of the May 2019 election results. His first term saw widespread dissatisfaction due to corruption, food shortages, and frequent power cuts. In 2018, thousands of Malawians took to the streets across several cities to protest against corruption scandals. Mutharika himself faced accusations in a high-profile bribery case. He was suspected of receiving over $200,000 or 145 million kwacha at that time from a businessman, Zamir Karim, who had secured a multi-million-dollar contract with the Malawi police. However, Malawi's Anti-Corruption Bureau later cleared Mutharika of any personal involvement in the Malawi Police Service food ration contract allegations. The SCB stated that their investigation found no evidence that Mutharika personally benefited from the $200,000 deposited into the Democratic Progressive Party's bank account. Election irregularities during the May 2019 election. These included the use of correction fluid or TPEX on tallying forms, mathematical errors, and incorrect results sheets being submitted to the main tallying center. These irregularities raised serious questions about the integrity of the election process. Another major issue was regional favoritism, aka nepotism. Many complained that Mutharika favored rural regions where his support base was strongest, potentially neglecting other areas of the country. This perception of bias fueled regional tensions and dissatisfaction. MCP seems to be doing that too. Is this the status quo in Malawi? We will save that for the next video. Lastly, there were ongoing economic concerns. Despite some improvements in infrastructure and decrease in inflation, many Malawians continued to face economic hardships. These challenges affected the livelihoods of countless citizens and contributed to the overall disconnect with Mutharika's leadership. I think he deserves 4 out of 10 for this. The last category is popularity. Despite all these controversies, he seems to be quite popular. If you watch his recent Times interview with Brian Banda, you will see a calm, educated, elderly statesman who speaks well. He claims that the people want him back. Sometimes I wonder if his popularity is based on people feeling that life before the Tonse Alliance was better. We all need to be careful about that kind of thought process. Because is he really capable of dealing with all the complex issues that Malawi and the world are experiencing right now? Nevertheless, he has a strong and dedicated base of die-hard supporters. So for this, I give him 7 out of 10. Okay, so that is 22 out of 40, which is 5.5 out of 10. That's less than Atupele by 4 points. You can rewatch those videos on this channel. Please remember that these are my points for now, and this could change before the elections next year. Let me know what your ratings are in the comment section. Just a reminder to make sure that you are listening to all these presidential candidates carefully. What are they promising? Can they actually deliver their promises? We have been deceived too many times. Let's do better this time. Let's vote for the best person that will improve the lives of the Malawian people. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Zikomo.